temperature of the tyres.
It's going to be freezing.
Well, exactly. It's so bizarre because in the summer you're looking at temperatures which are like 45 degree plus, and then in the winter obviously it's a stark contrast. How does that affect tyres when you're racing?
Instead of Spider Pig, it's the Vegas track.
It's the Vegas track.
Spider Pig, Spider, and
does look like it.
I did watch it about 4 times. But it really does look like. Look it up. It looks like Spider Pig.
Hello and welcome to On Track GP. It is Las Vegas week.
Las Vegas, baby.
I can't believe we're already at Vegas. I feel like we've been speaking about this for about 7 months now.
Penultimate race of the season. How's that happened?
I don't know. This. I feel like 1 minute we were in Australia,
Yeah.
and then now we're here.
It's also a terrible race time. Both suck from an English point of view.
Very early race time.
Yeah.
What time's the race start? Is it 7
6 a.m. UK.
Oh,
It's pretty rough.
But it's a Saturday night race in Vegas, which is quite interesting. It's the only Saturday race, apart from the sprints, of the season, which is quite fun.
I'm surprised it didn't start at midnight, though. You know, that would make a lot more sense.
So much more sense.
Yeah.
But then people will get confused between, wait, is it at
Well,
like
it's-
midday or like midnight, or is it on the Sunday midnight, or wait, Friday? I don't...
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for it. It's a track we've spoken about the entire season. And I mean, honestly, to race up and down that straight in Vegas with all the lights and everything, I mean, surely that's like a dream place to race.
Yeah,
with.
it's a pretty cool spectacle. I mean, like, I've been to Vegas quite a few times, and you know, I've sat in many bars along that strip, and you do look at it and you think, oh, well, now I know there's a Formula One race. Be like, okay, that'd be pretty cool to race on, and it's something completely different as well. And you know, it's actually nice because the one thing everybody's been talking about with these new circuits is they all look the same. They've got the same type of long corners, tarmac runoffs, and now we've got something completely out of the ordinary, completely different. And yeah, I'm all for it. Let's see how it goes.
Well, something interesting about Vegas is obviously the tyre temperatures. I mean, it's hot anyway. I mean, it's desert, but. The some of the sessions are predicted to be below 5 degrees in terms of the temperature of the tyres.
It's going to be freezing.
Well, exactly. It's so bizarre because in the summer you're looking at temperatures which are like 45 degree plus, and then in the winter obviously it's a stark contrast. How does that affect tyres when you're racing?
Well, I don't. To be honest, I mean, the temperatures at the time of night, as you say, are going to be cold, but it's still, because it is in the desert, it still gets pretty hot during the day. And I've been to Vegas at this time of year before, and in the day it's still pretty warm. So the track will actually hold that heat for quite a long time. Obviously, you know, the surface is black, so it holds the heat a lot better. So, but honestly, I really don't think it's going to be that big a problem because they've got tyre warmers in Formula One. So they'll just turn the blankets up. And then you can use brakes so effectively because the carbon brakes get up to about 1,000 degrees on these cars. They'll just either blank the brakes more, use the brakes more during the warm-up, and I honestly don't think it would be a problem.
Oh, why'd you have to burst my balloon, Richard?
Cold tyres. I thought we were going to have crashes and everything.
Yeah, you're so pragmatic. I was thinking they're going to be sliding all over the place. Yeah. It's going to be madness.
I would be more worried about Spa in the rain and the snow than I would be about Vegas.
Well, the 98 Spa crashes, that's the most famous one.
Exactly. I really don't think it would be that big an issue. However, if they had a support race without tyre warmers, like F2, F3, something like that, then I'd be very worried. But honestly, when you have tyre warmers in a car, you come out the pits and you just got grip straight away. As long as you keep the energy in the tyre, then they'll have no problem. After a safety car, if you have drivers on hard tyres, that could be really interesting. Now, that could be tricky, but otherwise I think it'll be fine.
Oh, it's going to be an interesting one.
The straight is 1.9 kilometres long.
Is that the longest straight we've ever had?
It has to be.
I think it's the longest straight, because Baku's not really straight, is it?
No.
You know, so the actual straight bit definitely will be
kind
longer.
of has a little curve, but it's not going to be. They're not going to be coming off the pedal at all. I found my favourite F1 meme, maybe of the season.
What is it?
It's Homer Simpson from the Simpsons movie holding Spider Pig, singing Spider Pig, but instead of Spider Pig, it's the Vegas track.
It's the Vegas track.
Spider Pig, Spider. And
it does look like it.
I did watch it about 4 times. But it really does look like. Look it up. It looks like Spider Pig.
I'm gonna actually have to look that up.
They're really good. Yeah.
Joe, what's your general feeling around Vegas this weekend? Are you excited for it because it's Vegas, or are you actually excited to see the track and the race itself?
I've been sort of saying all season, I think this weekend could be the biggest party weekend of any event of the whole year, not even F1, but of anything. There's so much money going into it. I mean, we could talk in a minute maybe about that. Maybe they've overpriced it a little bit because they haven't actually sold all the tickets. But I think the atmosphere of it is going to be amazing. The more that the weeks of ticked along and the more sort of research I've done into it, I'm more concerned about actually what's the race itself going to be like. But I went to Abu Dhabi last year and it felt like at Abu Dhabi the race was a bit of a sort of side event to all the parties and everything that was going on that were there, and I have a feeling that Vegas kind of might be the same. It might be a bit of a who's who, which hotel are you staying in, where's the party at?
I mean, tickets, like you said, it can't sell out because of how extortionately priced everything is. I mean, you're looking at, you know, hundreds and hundreds of thousands or millions at some point to go and stay there, which is a bit of a shame, because if you're a massive F1 fan and this is, you know, one of the first kind of races of its kind in Vegas, you want to go there and you want to experience it, but that kind of takes out literally everyone bar the 1% that could actually afford to do that.
Yeah.
But just to put it into perspective, how mental some of the costs were, I can't remember. I think it was at Caesars. One of their hospitality packages for 5 people at the Grand Prix, having the suite, you know, the full works, everything, I think it was $350,000. Now, to put that into perspective, if you took that amount of money and you contacted the Ferrari factory team as an amateur driver and said, I want to race one of your official Ferrari factory GT cars for 3 races, you could do that and have 35 grand spare.
That's actually mental. That is
just ridiculous. To put it into perspective.
Oh,
God. Or to go and watch a race.
Oh, that is just madness, isn't it?
But who has? I mean, like, great if you've got it fully up. I mean, I would do it if I had a spare 350 grand. I don't. But it's absolutely mental when you just realise how many people that could never actually attain going to watch this sport.
I mean, that was obviously like the full shebang.
But even if it's not the full shebang, if you live here or you live anywhere else other than, you know, I guess Vegas itself, you've got to pay for flights, you've got to pay for your hotel, which are through the roof.
The cheapest grandstand tickets are still $1,200 even now.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's just for the ticket.
It's mental, utterly mental.
You could just go hungry.
Yeah.
Go do a whole weekend for like €200.
Yeah,
exactly.
Unbelievable time.
Done.
There's been like quite a lot of drama as well about the local people have kind of kicked off because, I mean, they've drained fountains, they've boarded up monuments, they've built these huge grandstands. The most famous kind of thing that the video's doing the rounds is boarding up the bridges so that people can't see unless you pay for a ticket.
I actually was going to say from a safety perspective about people standing on the bridge as the cars are coming. I would have actually thought that was the reason, not that they had to pay for the ticket.
Yeah,
but.
And also I guess if people want to try and get around the track and people are blocking the bridges watching, there's a safety issue there as well. So I kind of do understand that. But like, it's months of disruption this has been going on, and they booked the race for 10 years. This isn't like it's a once in a lifetime thing. This is going to happen every year for 10 years at least.
To be honest, I really don't have that much sympathy for them. I really don't. I mean, honestly, first things first. When you arrive in Vegas and you talk to any of the locals, the one place none of them go is the Strip because it's the full tourist thing. It's like most places, people in London don't go to Oxford Street, you know, unless they're shopping or Leicester Square or something like that, unless there's a specific reason
or passing through.
Exactly. And also because like every road in every town in the US, Vegas just has a load of square roads all around it, so you can very easily get to the same place, avoiding the Strip. And for the amount of money that you could rent your house out on Airbnb for that weekend,
wild.
I mean, honestly, I would just go and book myself a flight to the Caribbean for the weekend.
Such a great shout.
Still make a profit.
Such a good shout. One of the funny things that is also going to be in the paddock is apparently the wedding chapel. That infamous, famous wedding chapel is going to be in the paddock.
Carlos Sainz dressed up as Elvis, blessing people and getting them married. Perfect.
It's going to be absolutely bizarre.
I mean, who would be your ideal priest as an F1 driver? That's a good question.
That is such a good question. I mean, you know, I've got a soft spot for Carlos Sainz. But I think
Danny Rick.
Danny Ricciardo, he'd probably do quite a good Elvis impression.
I mean, Yuki's hair is probably the closest to Elvis of the whole.
Great head of hair. Who'd be your guys?
I think as a priest.
So, yeah, who's marrying you?
I probably would like Danny Rick. To be fair, a bit of banter.
He would
lively.
He'd make it fun.
He'd make it fun.
I think Danny Rick or Yuki. I think Yuki, just the humour of it would be quite great. Good.
Yeah. Defo. There is a Netflix live golf tournament, by the way.
I'm buzzing about this.
This is, again, I feel like Vegas is very done for Drive to Survive, which I'm sure we're going to see, and it's going to look really cool. But it is getting to the point now where everything is kind of looking to be turned into a Netflix documentary, also with Alpine. As we've discussed now, we've got all these people that are brought in, NFL stars, footballers, etc. So this live golf tournament, the Netflix Cup, will be on the streaming service. It's going to include Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris, Alex Albon, and Pierre Gasly. How do you feel about that?
I'm not a golf fan at all, to be perfectly honest with you, but I think that is actually something which is quite amusing. I think that it's a way to make the sport more mainstream, which I think, as we've seen from the impact of Formula One over the last few years, is never really a bad thing. So the golf contingent who might not care about Formula One, it could bring another group of spectators to the sport. So honestly, anything like this, I'm all for it.
If we're making it more mainstream, don't you think that F1 needs to review the price of things then?
Now that I 100% agree with, and
because it is predominantly or historically a very rich upper class sport.
I mean, this was the argument with Bernie when Bernie had, before Liberty came in, was that Bernie was trying to make it too exclusive and too much of a VIP thing, and the paddocks were empty. There was no fan interaction, and Liberty have come along and they've done all of this stuff, which is creative fan interaction. Okay, well, let's now reflect that into the ticket prices, because they don't need to be as high as they are. I mean, you look at the Premier League and how much the Premier League charges for some football matches.
Oh, it's
right?
It's extortionate.
It's extortionate. And then you look at Silverstone, where they have 400,000 people on a day, and the cheapest ticket you can get is like 400 quid or something. Yeah. You can go and see 5-6 Premier League games at most clubs for that. But saying that, American sports are extraordinarily expensive to go and see as a whole.
NFL is really expensive.
Yeah, I mean, I went and saw the New York Rangers at Madison Square Garden a few years ago, and that cost me $350, and that's just for an ice hockey game, which isn't the biggest sport out there.
That's a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Steep,
so
very,
it's
very
kind
steep.
of a reflection, and it doesn't really surprise me, especially the American races, that they are those prices.
I think the Netflix Cup is actually a pretty savvy move from Netflix, because they released Full Swing this year, which was their golf documentary, the first season of that, and a couple of guys that are playing in the Netflix Cup with the sort of the stars, as it were, of that series. And then we've got Drive to Survive, and so, which is also another Netflix one. And the really interesting thing about this is that Netflix are broadcasting live, which I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think they've ever broadcast anything live
before.
No.
Which is kind of really interesting and a kind of cool, different twist. And they've got some decent, and I know that Carlos plays a lot of golf, Lando plays a lot of golf. Well, it must be that Pierre and Albon play a lot of golf as well. So the quality is going to be not dreadful, but it is. I think it's going to lean towards a little bit of Mickey Mouse golf. I don't think it's going to be too serious.
I don't think we're looking at PGA or anything.
No.
In other news, it is Lando Norris's birthday. He turns 24 today. I mean, if you'd like to.
Happy birthday to you. Just me. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Lando. Happy birthday to you.
That was really lovely.
Thanks very much.
Really, really lovely.
I think he'll appreciate it.
I think he will. Let's send that to him. Slide in the DM. I think we need to discuss how brilliant he's been this season. I think, obviously, McLaren got off to a rocky start. Boy, did they turn it around. And him and Piastri have both been incredible, but I still think Lando shows that he is still that more dominant driver. And I really feel like he probably should have had a P1 at some point this season.
I agree, and I think that, to be honest, I think Oscar's had a brilliant season. First of all, I think as a rookie year,
I think we forget he's a rookie. Actually,
exactly,
sometimes.
because that's probably the biggest compliment we can pay him. And I think he's had an incredible year. But Lando has just shown himself to be a class act. And honestly, I think that if there is serious question marks over Checo next year, he's probably the main contender you look at the minute. Now that Ricciardo's obviously been confirmed straight away in AlphaTauri. But I think that he's severely underrated, and he's definitely got a world championship material there.
Yeah, I think he's I totally agree. Very special. I like a stat. In the last 3 races, Lando Norris has scored 59 points.
Which is brilliant.
And Oscar Piastri's scored 4. Well, it doesn't tell the whole story, because Oscar Piastri's been a bit unlucky. But that does show, I think, that there's a 1-2.
Yeah, I think so. And I think there was some questions over if always, is Oscar pushing Lando for that number 1 spot. But I think it's still very clear that, Lando is absolutely brilliant. I mean, he's had 7 podiums this year.
And
that
he's
takes
driven
him
for half the season, really.
Yeah.
You think about it. It's only
7 podiums. That's a total of 13 in F1. And I think we say it kind of week in, week out that I think he'd be a perfect fit with Max at Red Bull. Not to toot my own team's horn, but I think there'd be a great partnership. Obviously, they've got that friendship as well. It'd be good competition for Max. And as much as I absolutely love Max and love seeing him win, I think I would like to also see a bit more fight at the top of the table. I just want to see proper racing, and it'd be interesting to see how Max coped if he had someone that is also pushing him for that number 1 spot as well within a team.
And the other interesting thing as well is, like, when Lando started dominating Daniel, he always just gets on with his business in a certain way, and I think that will be quite surprising for Max. Again, I think Max can deal with anything right now, and he's proven that. But it would be a very different way to the way that, I think under media scrutiny and stuff like that, he's behaved very, very well in the past. And so he would just quietly go about his business, and we'll definitely see some competition. Whether he could beat Max, that's another question, but it'll definitely be close.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's none of us think he's going to stay loyal to McLaren.
I think if the
deep sigh from both of you says no.
When Checo goes at the end of next season, assuming if they don't offer him another contract, I don't think is going to happen. I don't think they will offer him another contract, and that seat becomes available. I think it would be so hard for Lando to, particularly assuming that maybe he still doesn't win anything next season, and we know how good he is, a race I mean, it'd be so hard to turn down that car. So hard to turn down.
And at 25 years old, he knows that, even if McLaren come along and offer him a stonking amount of money, that he's in a position where he's 25, and even if he goes to Red Bull and it goes badly, he's still going to be such hot property on the driver market that he will be able to command ridiculous money when he's 30. He doesn't need to worry about that now.
It is the most cursed seat in Red Bull. The number
That's
two,
the
cursed seat in F1 is driving with Max.
Well, it needs a competent driver, and not saying that Checo isn't, but it needs someone that is probably young and hungry, and also wants to fight at that same level. And I think he is not at the level of Max, but he is someone that definitely has the potential to challenge Max.
And Red Bull have probably learned their lesson by putting the other young drivers that they have in a bit too early, and they've let Lando mature and take the pressure of being a number one, and take the pressure of having to develop a team around him. So that puts him in a much better place than Gasly and Albon were.
So very
right, quickly, we're moving on. The FIA is right to review. They are set to change the regulations in order to tighten up the process that allows F1 teams to request a right to review. This comes after Haas's recent right of review of the results from the US Grand Prix in Texas. It was rejected by the FIA. They are now planning on shortening the time teams have for an appeal from 14 days to 4 days. This will apply to all FIA sanctioned competitions, and a fee for doing so will be introduced for the first time. Of course, anything to make a bit of dough.
Not always.
What do you think about that, Richard?
I'm not a fan at all. This feels extremely, I don't know, it feels a bit like, dare I say, it's like being in a police state. It feels like you've got no right to complain, no right to review, and every single time that you do complain and someone finds a loophole in the regulations, they just all of a sudden go, oh no, we can't do that. And of course then the money thing comes into it, as it always has. In fairness, the money thing's not too bad. I kind of agree with that, because the normal way it goes with a protest is because you're going to waste everybody's time potentially, is that you have to pay an extortionate fee, but if you win your protest, then you get that fee back.
No win, no fee.
There you go,
Literally,
exactly.
no win, no fee.
But it doesn't, I really, really don't like this. It leaves a very sour taste that it's kind of, it's being run by them, and you can't complain against what they decide, and that's it effectively. So I hope that it doesn't get implemented, and that somebody within the sport is a bit more outspoken about this, because especially if it comes down to categories outside of F1 where we don't have as big an influence over the FIA, then I'm really uncomfortable with it.
And 4 days doesn't seem like enough.
No, it doesn't.
To review and
to go, hold on, oh my God, we've got half a week to make a decision. So,
and
come on.
What if you've got 3 races back to back, and then you've got to travel around the world to get there? How are you going to have the time to be able to look at that and review all the evidence and everything?
Yeah, it's a little bit unfair.
And if you actually look at the Haas thing that they said about Austin, that Haas were actually right, and it kind of reminds you a bit about what some of the stuff that's going on in the Premier League right now. With the referees, Haas were right, and they acknowledged that Haas were right in their things, but they said that they threw it out because Haas had no new evidence that came to the table.
So
it doesn't mean the evidence that exists is redundant.
Exactly.
It just means you don't have enough, but you're right on that.
Yeah.
It's just a silly idea, but who knows? I think the FIA are constly changing things.
As a fan of motorsport, it leaves quite a sour taste.
I can understand that. Just before we wrap, Mercedes, they had an upgrade in Texas with the W14. It looked massively improved. Lewis obviously was challenging for the win at that point, and ultimately took second in Texas and Mexico. Sao Paulo,
and then it started to do this.
Didn't look very good, did it?
No.
Toto's actually called the car a horrible car.
He said something
after
along
Sao
those-
Paulo.
It was his worst it was his worst weekend in Formula One.
Yeah, he said it was a wrong direction in the
Even
setup.
worse than Abu Dhabi 21.
That's what he said. It was worse because there was no challenge.
We all know that this car has just not been the one. They've persisted with it. Side pod, no side pod, whatever they were doing with the side pod. The whole design just is now redundant. Yeah. So it is. They're going to have to go back to basics, aren't they? I assume they're already working on that for next year.
Yeah, they'll have just done a copy. There's a clear concept now which is working in Formula One, and they'll just have done a copy and paste of it.
The Red Bull.
The Red Bull.
Exactly. And everybody will end up with that concept next year, and it'll be the way to go. I think. Yeah, they'll just get out the next two races. Whether it performs in Vegas, who knows? Because it is such a unique track. But yeah, just accept that you failed, basically.
Ferrari going to win in Vegas, baby.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
We'll see you as a 1-2 pole as usual, and then within the first corner, hit a P3 and 4.
I think we could qualify well.
And that was my next question. That was my next question before we wrap up, guys. Who are we expecting to have a great weekend, or who do you want to see have a great weekend
apart
in Vegas?
from Max?
I've got some weird feeling in my bones that Checo's going to do really well.
I think we say this quite often.
I think
we're often disappointed.
I have been saying that since sort of late May.
Yeah.
I've got a weird feeling he might even like win it or something. I don't know why.
I'd be happy for him if he did. He's needed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't think he will.
Street circuit,
no,
bit
I
of an unknown
I
entity.
think that's a myth now.
Car's an absolute rocket, obviously. I don't know. I mean, he'll probably crash out in lap 3 or something.
So Checo for you.
Yeah, let's do it. Why not?
Rich?
Max is going to win, I think,
Obviously.
because
it's the obvious choice.
Yeah, you'd be wrong
Water
to
is
say
wet.
win. I'm looking forward to seeing Leclerc, because Leclerc always goes well on these types of circuits, and the Ferrari was good in places like that early in the season. I also think Williams will be quite good. I saw an interview by Albon this week saying Vegas is going to suit them, and generally every time he said that, he's been pretty spot on. So I'm excited to see how Williams do.
Okay, interesting.
You?
I mean, I can't rule out Max, can I? I think Lando will be up there. I would not be upset at all if Lando got a podium or P1.
Where's Checo? What have I done? What have I done?
I actually can't call what happens to Checo anymore, because I feel like I've given him so much faith, and then he just does silly things.
Lets you down.
So I'm going P4. Checo,
Yeah.
P4. Yeah, it was a bit heartbreaking what happened to him last time out, wasn't it? When he was just like a fifth of a second
Unbelievable race finish,
we haven't even spoken about them. But we will be back later this week, won't we? We'll be back to talk on Thursday to preview everything ahead of Vegas. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Rich. This is On Track GP, and we'll see you later in the week. Bye.